can talk to anyone.
Okay, whatever.
Whatever they bring up.
Okay, perfect. I'll talk about it. Great, thanks. It's really great to be here. And thanks. So I'm going to carry on about something that Sid said, that he really nailed it. And he talked about the supply chain. And as most of you guys know, I was the creator of the Tofino firewall. And we were putting those little firewalls out there to make sure that everything was secure and it was a happy family and all was good. And I started to get really worried about the supply chain because all the firewalls that I could sell weren't going to help. And so I started to look at supply chain issues and what was going on with the supply chain. And it really started to concern me. And for a number of reasons. Whoops, wrong button. There's the right button. There's the obvious things. I mean, we've heard about things like Dragonfly, where people have put in counterfeit software. We've heard about the issues that have happened with Triton, where there's modified software going in there. There's malicious code getting injected. But then there's just the problem of, does anybody even know if they're loading the current version? I mean, we all know that Windows XP is what you don't put on your computer today if you want to build a new PC. But do you know what version if you're a technician out in the field? And also this comes with the whole question that Sid brought up about all in that chain of partners is, who are the third-party components? And out of that comes hidden vulnerabilities, and stability issues, and lots of problems. So I started to get very, very worried about this a few years ago, actually when Dragonfly came along. And I realized that I could solve the problem, like if I was given a whole day. I mean, but the typical operation has millions of devices. They'll deal with thousands of vendors. You take a large organization like one of the major oil companies. There are hundreds of databases. You can go and look up information on software in the National Vulnerability Database, NIST's National Repository of Software, as NLSR, all the things like the antivirus, like VirusTotal. So there's lots and lots of good databases, and there's hundreds of tools out there. Some of them very good, some of them very expensive, some of them very inexpensive. So there's tons of information, and if you've got all day to every time you want to upload a package to go research it, you can probably find the information. But this is not the real world for the average guy on the plant floor. He doesn't have all day. He's been given a package. How does he build his sense of the trustworthiness of that particular product or that particular piece of software? So Jonathan Butts and Billy Rios and I went out to the DHS and approached Doug Ma and got a funded project 2 years ago to look into this problem. How do you know that the software you're loading is the right software? And out of this has come a whole platform for cooperation and teamwork called FACT. It stands for the Framework for Analysis and Coordinated Trust. And this is intended to be a community effort, very similar to VirusTotal is for malware. There's a very good community if you want malware or learn about malware. How about learn about good stuff? So what we're trying to do is build up a trust score, just like for credit card company or for credit, you can go and get your FICO score, and FICO tracks that, communicates to all the banks, and communicates with you, communicates with the vendor or all the merchants. So builds up this aggregate information. Can we do the same for software? And so that was the whole intent. So out of this research project, we've come up with the following architecture. First of all, the vendors, and we're now getting some really cool partner vendors like OSIsoft and Caterpillar who we're working with, and they're supplying these, letting us put an agent into their development system. So way before the software is released, we can get fingerprints and put them up in the cloud. Not the software itself, but the fingerprints. And then when an asset owner, say somebody in a refinery comes along, they can use the same sort of agent to get the same sort of fingerprint off of the software they're about to load into a controller and compare it in the database and say, hey, is that actually the software that was intended for this PLC? Or is that some software that maybe was manufactured by North Korea and has a few extra features? You can also then use that to go out and look at other systems out there. You can go out and use it for applications such as if you're doing incident response and you've got a whole plant full of software and you're trying to find the one piece of malware, how do you do that? Well, again, you can send the fingerprints back and look at that. And then probably most important is there's lots and lots of information out there, as I mentioned. So can we look back out to the internet and have this as an aggregation source? So this is the whole idea behind this whole concept of the fact community and building out a community for the industrial world. And I'm going to give you some examples of how it could be used. This is just, and I want to be really clear, these are just examples of what this information can be, used for. I'm not trying to sell you on a particular GUI or anything like that. But for example, say you're a technician and you've been given this binary here and told to put it in a PLC. Well, where did it come from? Because it's a free-floating binary, you can't check its signing. But if you have a database that relates all of this, then you can do things like this, saying, well, you know, that binary was actually spotted in that package. That package was actually released by Rockwell. It was signed by Rockwell. Therefore, we can trust the binary. This is the same, what looks like the same binary that was actually given to me by somebody who had worked on it a little. It is the same length. It has the same name. It looks like the same binary. But because that has no association to any software ever released by Rockwell, we can say that it's probably counterfeit. So that gives you an example of what's possible with a trust community that we're trying to build, and we're really hoping everybody will want to come and be part of this. And in fact, if you want to be part of it and play with it, I can give you an access code and a card right away. There's no charge. You can just mess around and try it out. But the whole idea is to make this independent of vendors, independent of platforms, not make it just work for a particular operating system, but something that will work across our entire industry with all the different operating systems we have, and make it fit into our existing processes so that it's nice and easy to use. And make it work, particularly anybody here has to do NERC compliance? Nobody? No NERC people here? Okay. Well, they actually have to start validating software before they load it. So basically, this whole thing is how do we build a community of the asset owners, the vendors, the integrators and the consultants, and all the people with really cool security tools out there so that we can share information about the binaries for devices, for HMIs, whatever, so that we can help build a sense of trustworthiness.